Alrighty, so this is going to be a quick video on how to combine a character's head with another character's body. I already have my two characters here. I'm going to use Barret and combine his head with this guy from, I think, Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't even know. Alright, so first thing you want to do is make sure you import the characters. Try to align the body as much as you can with where the head is. Make sure you have like the skin for the character also imported. It doesn't have to be perfect because later on you could pose it correctly, so I'm not going to do the arms here. But you want to get the neck as close as possible. Let me get my keys to show up. Okay. Alrighty. So after you get that done, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be sculpting the body to fit a little more the angle of Barret's shoulders. It's hard with Barret out of all the characters because he's missing so much of his skin because of his jacket. So we're going to try to get around that, kind of just guesstimating where his shoulders would be. So for this I'm going to make a copy of both the head and the body of Drax, combine those, and then sculpt from there. You always want to try to keep like a copy of the original mesh you're working on, just in case something goes wrong. So let me do that really quick. Alright, so now that I made a copy, I can go ahead and start sculpting it in sculpt mode. I usually always use the elastic deform brush, 50, half strength, and then I'm going to use the mirror. Because this character I haven't applied his rotation, he's still on the x-axis, that's why. But for Barret, it would be the y. Alright, so let me do this real quick.
And don't you know how sweet it tastes? How sweet it tastes. Yeah, don't you know how sweet it tastes? How sweet it tastes. Yeah, don't you know how sweet it tastes? Now that I'm without you.
Alright, so it doesn't need to be perfect, just so we're somewhat close to where Barret's neck kind of flows. We kind of just want our Drax body to be around. Alright, we're gonna be able to fix all those inconsistencies later. Alright, so back in object mode, now that we have the head or Drax's body somehow where we want it, we're gonna go ahead and hide Barret's skin since we don't need it anymore, and we can go ahead and split this mesh again. So go into edit mode. It's gonna go back to its original position because I haven't applied the pose yet. But go here into materials tab, let's go into wireframe mode and select just the head and hit P to separate by selection. Go back into object mode. Okay, so now that we have this here again, we want to start editing Barret now. We want to get his head to align as closely as possible with the edges of Drax's head. So again, make a copy. And then with this copy, we're just going to go ahead and sculpt Barrett now. Try to get him as close as possible to Drax. Okay. Sculpt mode. Since Barrett is on the y-axis, we're going to need this. And then just go ahead and sculpt.
1, 2, 3 Baby you make me smile 네 스타일은 다 맞아 그게 너라서 더 좋아 Got that one of a kind You got it cause you're just my type And I like your style
Alright, so again, not perfect, but just so it kind of aligns with Drax. I think that's good enough. Okay. So now that we have that aligned, we can go ahead and combine Barrett's head with Drax's body. Not completely perfect. I wonder why. Shoulders? Oh, this is the wrong one. That's why. There you go. Okay. Alrighty. So again, not completely perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just edit Barrett again. Or you can edit the body. Depends on which one has more vertices. So let's see. Let's go into this mode. Seems to have the same amount of vertices. It doesn't really matter. Alright, we'll go ahead and mess with Barrett again. Let's go into sculpt mode. Then you just want to go ahead and make sure Barrett aligns as close as possible before we merge with Drax's shoulders. Yep, okay. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and edit the body instead. Okay.
그저 조용조용 맘속에서 뒤없이 흐르다가 한 번씩 맘을 찔러 Come on come on 머리에서 얌전히 지내다가 눈물로 또 나타나 I just don't know what to do
Alright, now that we have that sculpted as closely as possible, we can go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to merge. But before we can do that, make sure that your UV maps are at least named the same. Looks like we're not, so we're just going to go ahead and copy this and rename this correctly. Alright, now that we have that, let's go ahead, let's say, again, before you do this, go ahead and finish posing your model the way you want it to. That way, you don't have to go back and figure out, how to get it to pose again, because we might have to mess with vertex groups and that kind of stuff. So, after you finish all your posing, I'm not going to do that because I don't really care about this. You can go ahead and we're going to hit apply on our armature. And we're going to leave Barrett that way. Or, actually, no. Let's apply here for Barrett. We're going to join Barrett into the Drax body. So, actually, yes. Alright. Now that it's combined into one, we'll call this one body. We can go ahead and start merging vertices. So we're going to have to do this first before we can even deal with our texture stuff. So do this first. So to merge vertices, that way we get kind of like a seamless look to this first. Obviously we already sculpted it to where we want it, or as close as we can get. So we're going to go into edit mode now. I suggest going into vertex mode since we're going to be merging vertices. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this, but the easiest way for me is to go into wireframe mode. You would have a bunch, but kind of go inside of the model. And once you're here, you're going to go ahead and select the two nearest vertices. At some point you may have to merge, more than 3 together, but we can start with just 2. So once you select 2 vertices, you want to go ahead and hit M. And usually, like when you're trying to get rid of like duplicate vertices or vertices close to each other, you want to use by distance, but we're going to use at center instead. That way we can combine stuff that's even far away, like these two. So you're just going to go all the way around. You might have to toggle through material preview and regular mode or wireframe mode, but just go ahead and go all the way around the head, merging the vertices between Barrett's neck seam and Drax's body seam. Alright? Alright, so we've gone completely around. We've merged all of the edge vertices, and now we have Barrett attached to Drax's body. Obviously you can go back into sculpt mode. If there's any like jagged edges around, you can go ahead and clean those up. But honestly, other than like a tiny little thing here, it looks okay to me. Alright, so now we can go ahead and deal with getting Drax's skin texture to apply to Barrett's head. There's a couple different ways we can do this, but I will show you a sort of easy way to do this. We're going to have to use a new or a different program. I don't know if you've used this before. It's going to be called Wrap. I'll post a link, but I'm just going to go ahead and open up the program really quick, and we're going to export Barrett's head and Drax's head into the program. That way we can transfer over the texture correctly. You could also use this program to transfer over vertex groups, so we'll also do that. That way I can just show you how it moves correctly. Alrighty, so we're going to go back into edit mode, face mode, because I like it better, and we're going to choose, actually before we do that, let's get rid of unused slots. We're going to choose Barrett's head, and we're going to separate by selection. Alrighty, so we'll call this new Barrett head. Okay. So with this Barrett head, we can hide the body, we can hide his head again, and we're going to find the quote-unquote correct Drax head, which is this one. Let's go ahead and remove unused slots. I'll call this usable head. Okay. So with this head, we're going to go ahead and export it as OBJ because that's what Wrap uses. I'm going to drop it into my desktop just so it's easier for me. I'll call this Drax. Hold on. Oh, this is importing. Alright, sorry. We're going to export. I'm going to call it Drax. And we're going to limit to select only. You don't have to touch any other of these settings. So once you export that out, do the same with Barrett's new head. Go ahead and export as OBJ, and we'll call it Barrett. Again, the settings should be the same. We can export. Alright, so once you have Wrap downloaded, it's going to look like this. This uses nodes, kind of like Blender, but we use Tab to open this up. So we're going to go ahead and add in 2 of these low geometries. You can rename them if you want to make it easier to know which is which. We'll call this Barrett head, and we can rename this one to Drax. Alrighty, so we'll import Drax's head first. I dropped this in my desktop. Okay, we're gonna just kind of zoom out a little bit. And then over here it tells you how to rotate the viewport, but it's Alt and then different mouse clicks. So I'm just gonna move this around. That way we see Drax's head. Alrighty, so we can go ahead and import Barrett's head now. It's there. We can't really see it, so let's go ahead and import Barrett's skin texture. I have that over here. Okay. And we can turn off wireframe. There we go. There's Barrett. Okay. So now that we have both of our heads imported, we're going to add in another geometry node that's going to be called Select Point Pairs. So this is basically saying that you want both of these things aligned, and that we see in the visual editor. Go ahead and hit Sync Views. That way you can move both of the heads together. And then there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do this by hand, by, I forget what it's called. I don't even know, because I haven't done it in so long. I think it's Select Polygons or Point to Point Pairs. That's doing it manually, but we don't have time for that. So we're going to use Fast Wrapping, which works sometimes even better than doing it by hand. So in Fast Wrapping, you want the head that you want the texture transferred over to. You want that in Drax. And then the character head, you want it over in Barrett's. And then Select Point Pairs, you want it into this yellow node. Actually, I don't even know if what I said makes sense. Ignore that. Just have it lined up how I have it here. I know I'm getting tired. Okay. So now in this viewport editor, we're gonna go ahead and just move this so I can see the ear. We're gonna go ahead and you can hit compute right away, but I like to use this, what is that, Euclidean sampling type. Always have normalized sampling on, and then you can hit auto compute. So what this does is it takes Drax's mesh or head and it wraps it around, it takes Drax's head and it wraps it around Barrett's head to give us Barrett's shape. Okay, you can go ahead and look around, make sure that it looks okay. Sorry. By the way, this is also something you can use if you want to basically not do face weight painting by hand. This is what I use now, but we just want to use this to transfer textures because we're going to keep Barrett's head. Alright, so once that's done wrapping, you could export it, but we don't actually care about this new transformed Drax head, so we're going to forget about that. And we're going to worry about the texture part. So we're going to hit Transfer Texture. Oh, is that it? Transfer Texture. And we can go into the viewport editor. So basically what we want to do is we want to take Drax's texture, so let's actually load that in. Sorry, it's DDS. Give me 1 second. Go. Okay. Cool. Okay. So we have Drax's face here. We're gonna go ahead and attach it to Drax. So if for some reason we came in here to the viewport editor, you can see his skin texture here. So we want to transfer this texture over to Barrett's mesh. I always forget which way to do it correctly. So I'm going to guess and say this one goes here and this one goes here. We can check by going into the viewport editor tab. And there we go. Okay, so now we have Drax's skin texture, which you can see is in a different like orientation, is now fitting Barrett's UV map, which is this way. You can go ahead and change the size. This makes this a 2K texture. And then we can add in a couple of things. We can extrapolate the image, that way it fills in any open spots. Uh-oh. I think because this is a little bit transparent, so we can just edit this really quick. There we go. Okay. Sorry. Alright, so let's save this as PNG. Let's get rid of this. Delete. Okay, so now we're going to use this here. Instead of this one. There we go. See it on Drax. And then you can see the texture transferred over. So now with this extrapolate, it kind of just fills in the transparent parts. And then we just want to hit save image. Alright. So here, just save it. You have your stuff. New skin, or new head. Then just hit compute current frame. It's going to save. Now we want to do the same thing with the rest of Drax's textures, which include this face roughness. See, it's transferred over, extrapolated, and we can save. New head. And then same thing with his normal map, which I need to open. If I can find it. There we go. Okay. Let's just rename this. There we go. Okay. So now that we transferred over all the textures, we can go back into Blender and we can apply these textures to Barrett's head. So go into the shading tab and we can load this up. Right here. go. We got one. Doo-doo. Two and three. And where is it? This alrighty. So I guess the issue is the darkness. We can just fix that by going into Photoshop, opening this, and just saving the file as a PNG. And both new skin. Okay. So let's see if that helps with the. There we go. Sort of do the same thing with the rest of them. Okay. Alright, that way we're pretty close. Obviously we still have a seam here. So what we can do, that's a PNG, that's a DDS file. Let me just open this up, see if this helps. No, not really. Okay. So obviously we still have the seam here. So what we can do now is we will use the texture painting tab for this. Alright, so have your mesh in here. Let me just move this around. As you can see, it looks like we have the normal map on the body, the roughness map on the head. The way we can fix this is just by going over here and choosing what texture we want to edit. We want the there we go. There we go. So before we do that, we gotta join these back together into one object. So let's hit J. Alright, now that it's into one object, we can shuffle through our materials here. Call this X. Alright, and then we can go ahead and start editing the seam. We're going to use this is called the soften brush for this. But you just want to go around. You can edit your strength. Let's just make it this. This radius looks fine. You're going to go around, make sure that you're on the color map for both materials. Just go around and you're going to soften this up. Oh. Oh. There we go. Another thing I forgot, I think. Let's go to tab mode. Select head. Oh, actually, don't do that. Go to wireframe mode. Yeah, wireframe. And select the. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just select the edges around this, because again we separated it. You just want to make sure that you get rid of the duplicate vertices. So let me just go around and do that. Alright, and then we're going to hit merge, but it's obviously instead of center, because that would be getting rid of his neck. we're going to hit merge by distance, and it will tell me at the bottom how many vertices it removed. 52. Okay. Alright. So now back in here. That should also help with the blending. I think it helped a little bit. So now we can go back into here and keep doing our softening.
이제 어떻게 말을 하다 그댈 만나러가 뭔가 좀 자꾸 어색해요 반발머리 하다 지난 날을 잊고 나 새롭게 태어날 거예요 It's gonna be fun
So we did it as much as we could on the color map, so then just go through and do the same thing with the rest of the maps.
Bring the boys out
Alright, so last is the normal map, which I would be the most careful with, especially because we have like all these skin markings that we have to, or we want protruding. So just carefully do the same with this.
Baby listen Listen
Alrighty, I think this is as good as we're gonna get. Obviously you can see from here that the roughness or the normal maps aren't the same strength. You could go back, you could like make the head one stronger or the body one weaker. I don't really care about that. We have this here. Actually, that's the reason why we kind of have these edges here. But again, if you're doing something like just regular skin, not something as interestingly complicated as this, then you probably don't need to edit the textures as much. But this would be something you would do in like Photoshop or Substance Painter. Okay. And that is it. So now Barrett is attached to a new body. He has a new head texture. And that is how you can attach a body or attach a head to a new body and transfer the textures over.